Hello, everybody. Nice to have you all here with us today. It's Wednesday, 28th of February, 2024. We are in the leap year. Be careful, those friends who are in Ireland. You may have a chance to have a marriage proposal tomorrow. So be very careful. And also, we will celebrate Charles Kempf's birthday tomorrow. Finally, you have a birthday this year, Fire.
Yeah, every 4 years, isn't it?
Every 4 years, Charles has a birthday.
This year there is one, yeah.
Yeah, but for my Irish friends, be careful because tomorrow you may be caught in a proposal, a marriage proposal. So
But I mean, why should they be? Why should they be careful? They might
I don't
want
know
to.
because if the guy don't give the step forward, now is the chance for the wife, the partner give this step forward. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
So so who are in their comfort zone? Tomorrow is a day this can go out. You know, they could go out. But anyway, we never knows. We never knows. So jokes apart. Uh, Today's topic is freedom and respect. Freedom and respect. Mainly, it is the law of freedom in the Spirit's book we will cover today. And this is from me. I want to say good evening, Miss Gibbons. How are you, my dear?
Oh, good evening. All is well. Thank you very much. And I hope everyone that's with us today and will listen to us later are well as well. And, today is a very interesting topic, isn't it, that we're going to talk about. So it's good to have people's ideas about it and everything. So join in, ask questions, make suggestions if you're listening. And looking forward to today. Boa tarde a todos, bom dia. Nós vamos discutir um bom tema hoje, então participe, esteja com a gente. E tudo de bom e que Deus nos abençoe a todos. Thank you.
Bonsoir, Charles.
Bonsoir, Steven. Bonsoir. Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Very happy again, as usual, as every week, to be here with all of you to talk about this topic, which is, I think, one very fundamental topic. This law of freedom and what it implies, respect amongst others, in order to enable us to live this life in full conscience and to motivate us to use our free will, which is a consequence of the liberty, of the freedom, in the good way, in order to progress for more happiness, more intelligence, and more goodness.
Lovely. Yes, this is so important topic, and I want to say good evening to our dear Elsa. She's back in São Paulo. Also to our friends Célia Carvalho, Julia Nezo, Cesar Perry, Beatriz Gilles. So good friends I don't see for a while. You should pop up in Europe someday, my friends. We're missing you. We need to have our good chats, good discussions about spiritism. Good to
Or
have
we
you.
again in Brazil, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
2019 already. So,
Yeah. The last time I
ideas.
saw Cesar Perry was in in Vienna. A long time ago.
Even older, huh?
Yeah, long time ago.
I
Okay.
just want to send a big hug to Julia Nezu because she's a very dear friend. Thank you for the gift, and it's so lovely to have you here in Elsa. Hi, Cesar, how are you? And Celia, so a big hug for you both.
Yeah, Julia, I saw her in Mexico. So It's more recently. No, more recently. But it's good to have you, Julia. Julia, thank you. Okay, first things first. Let me share my screen, and we show our short video today. Okay.
You're not only to teach the way of the good, you are to act in accordance with the lofty principles that you proclaim. You are to dictate worthy directives to others, but you are to heed them as well. You are to proclaim the need for courage while sowing joy and blessings, even when you are misunderstood by all.
Yeah, see, short video today. And let me remove this. Just a quick reflection about the freedom and the respect in Spiritism. Spiritism emphasizes the importance of individual freedom in both terms, in personal autonomy and spiritual freedom. Spiritism advocates the freedom of thought, belief, and expression. And all individuals, either incarnate or discarnated, are encouraged to explore and develop their spiritual beliefs and practices without coercion or dogma. In terms of respect, is fundamental in Spiritism, not only in terms of respecting the beliefs and practices of others, but also in fostering a deep respect for all forms of life and existence. Respect for oneself, for others, and for the spiritual realm is seen as an essential for personal growth and harmony within society. So, as you can see, my friends, today we're gonna touch an important topic for ourselves, which is our free will and our freedom. And Charles, it's 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 a characteristic here in Europe for us. We see here everybody preserves their freedom, their autonomy, their let's say their autonomy. You know, they preserve a lot of these their values, and it's so good to see everyone respecting it without causing problems. At least here in Ireland is like this. We can see a protest on one side of the road, and the other side of the road the traffic is running smoothly, no problem, because everybody is respecting. When they do a manifestation, they book a time, it will start, and that time it will finish. And from my background, I come from a place in which such event it is a mess. Is a reason for stop working entire day because you cannot get home. All the public transport going to stop. Everything is going to be upside down. It is a characteristic for the European to be more respectful and more diligent in their freedom.
Steven, what you just told about when there are manifestations, it's not exactly like this in France, huh? Because most
No,
of the manifestations, they are blocking roads and fuel deposits and really doing things for messing everything up. Even the guy who needs to take someone in emergency to the hospital can be blocked or things like that, you know. So okay,
no.
it's not so ideal, at least here in France. Huh?
Okay.
But okay, yeah, I mean, in Europe, and I would add also North America, huh? we had very early, already in the 18th century, revolutions. The American Revolution, the British also Revolution, the French Revolution, 1789. And what was exactly the purpose of this revolution? It is exactly liberté, égalité, fraternité, we say in French. Liberty, equality, freedom, equality, and fraternity. So the first one is freedom. So it was clearly a reivindication for freedom to get rid of all these imposed regimes, authoritarian regimes, whether from the king, whether also through the alliance of the king with the religious leaders. So also to have this pressure coming from the religious leader, which were willing to control everything. And so this was, of course, always subject to abuses. And that is exactly what motivated the people to say, it's enough. We won't get rid of those things. We don't want those things anymore. But even so, you see, French Revolution was 1789, but it took more than a century until France had a more or less stable democratic regime with the Third Republic. It was more than a century. Now, what do we see today, nowadays? We see a lot of regions where, or of countries where this culture is maybe not so strong, and where still are surviving authoritarian regimes. We can, for instance, see US or North Korea or Venezuela in Latin America, a little bit everywhere. We have this strong authoritarian regime. So why did we start in Europe before those other countries? And why sometimes in Europe there were some, how do you tell that in English? Recaídas, Stevan? Fallback,
yeah.
Fallback, like the Nazi period, which was also an authoritarian regime. Also like what we can see nowadays in some countries, the people are voting for authoritarian leaders who are squeezing the liberties, the democratic principles, like it was the case not so long ago in Poland, like it is still the case in Hungary, and while like the risk, or in Italy, and like the risk is also still existing in some other countries. So you see, it is really how to say an oscillation between freedom and authority. And when we look, most of the wars around the world, even today, like Léon Denis said in his book Spiritism and the War, that he wrote after WW1, it is really almost all the cases a war for liberty against authority. And even in the Spirit book, there is in the law of liberty, law of freedom, it's in the book 3rd, chapter 9, talking exclusively about the subject we are treating today. There is a question which is saying about the wars. Are there some cases where the wars are still necessary? And the spirits, no, it's not law of liberty, it's law of destruction. The spirits, they answer, yes, the war is still necessary to gain liberty against the authority. And this is exactly what we see in Ukraine right now. I saw a member of the parliament in an interview this week on the TV. And at the end, she was asked, what would you say today to Vladimir Putin if you could talk to him? I would say, please go away. Let us live our life like we want, in a free, we don't want authoritarian regime here in Ukraine anymore. So it's typically this war. Some countries which were under the communist regime, the Soviet Union regime, which had some aims to go to liberty. And this is absolutely badly perceived by his neighbor, which is willing to stop that. And then using all the type of lies and manipulations and qualifying and qualification and whatsoever to justify something which is unjustifiable. Because the law of liberty, as per Allan Kardec, is a law of nature. It's natural liberty. It's, of course, we are living together, so we're not fully free, and there is where comes the respect. Each one of us, if he want to be free, he must respect the freedom of the other. Because if nobody respects the freedom of the other, the freedom is gone. It's as simple as that. But we have the freedom of thought. This is absolute. We are free to think whatever we want. And this is exactly this problem we have for the revolutions and the wars nowadays of liberty against authority. But as soon as we are living in society, we need to respect the liberty of the others. And another fundamental aspect which was stressed in the video at the beginning is the free will. And I think this is something which is also very strong in Europe. Also protection of personal data, for instance, there are some questions like this which are very sensible because the people, they don't want to be monitored, they don't want to be filmed, they don't want to be registered and so on. And they are very attached to be free to do what they want without being watched by the government or whatever. For instance, like in China, where you have these camps in the streets, recognizing the persons and then feeding a system to give a note to the person. This would be absolutely, strongly rejected in Europe. But okay, I think since it's a natural law, as per the Kardec spirits book and the answers given by the spirits, it will end up prevailing everywhere. And this is what we see. There is clearly a move to more and more liberty, but this responsible liberty associated with corresponding responsibility. And that will be this real, true, strong, autonomous regime against the heteronomy, this subject you like also very well, Stevan, isn't it? When all the people, all the humans will do the good by their free will use their free will for doing good and not doing bad or evil anymore. And that will then be also a sign of the transition from this world of expiation and trials to the world of regeneration.
Thanks. Good. Wow. Yeah. Thank you. And also, I want to say good night to our friend Ruben de los Santos in Uruguay. Good evening, my friend. And my dear Silvia, just taking
Oh, yes.
just following Charles' train of thought. I'd like to go to question 835 from the Spirit's book, in which Kardec asked to the Spirit, is freedom of conscience a consequence of freedom of thought?
Well, the answer of the spirits, as usual, very concise, very objective. And what they say is conscious inner thought that belongs to man, like all his other thoughts. So in a way, the answer that Charles gave was really overreaching, and it was very interesting because it includes so many things. No one can impose on us a way that we should think. And Charles, talked about revolution and some changes. And there are times in which people are very oppressed because they are dictators, and usually they use terrible violence against people, and they impose the way that they want on other people. But this is very superficial because if we look throughout history, they never last, because there's so, you may impose your way, and I think sometimes fear of the consequences, and usually is because it's very, very violent. People fear for their safety, maybe the safety of their own families, and so they will maybe for a while put up with some ideas and things. Those who are, more influenced by things, they might even begin to believe on that. But there will be always few people who will not be imposed upon what they believe, what they think. There is not going to be change because that's strong in their own. And I think, the answer that the Spirit says in question 836, and he said, is there any barriers against freedom of conscience? So you cannot impose on other people, because what they believe, if it comes deep down on them, is a question of principle, of character. Even though they may not say it, they will keep to themselves, but within themselves, they will always have that different way of thinking, even though maybe appearances will be different. And I think if there is anything that can illustrate this, was the, how many hundreds of years we had the Inquisition in Europe, which was one of the most imposing ideas on people, forcing them by all sorts of means. And we know, excommunication of 7 generations of the family. And for us nowadays in the modern world, we don't quite understand the weight that these things had. But, going back to 14th, 15th century, those were very weighed heavily. You would be isolated from society, you wouldn't be respected, you couldn't even get a job. So it meant, almost destruction of your life and your family. But even those things, it ended, because I think God gave us free will, gave us the power of thought, gave us the power of conscience, and we can be imposed upon for a while, but will not last. And we saw last century, there's horrible regimes that we had that imposed their ideas, their violence, the most atrocious thing, and they went. And I think, because comes a point that people get tired of being oppressed and they will move on. And I think Charles talked about the French Revolution, and that was an incredible example of a revolution because the people were there. It was not a group of intellectuals who had ideas, but the people came out in the street. And it was a total change because, the power of the church was extremely very, very strong in France. And also they sustained the government, and people were starving and all these difficulties. And they said, no, enough. The fact that afterwards they took all that, the law, the liberty that they created, and you started imposing something else. It happened because human beings seems we need to go down sometimes to the very bottom of the abyss to be able to learn a few lessons and come up. So there is always this huge revolutionary changes in the world. It's I remember quite well in Iran, back in the 70s, that they wanted to change things, and people kept coming and they would shoot them and they would kept coming. And eventually, and now it seems to be, that thing that was sort of a freedom for a while became also an imposition. So there is big changes there. You have this thing sort of cooking in the between. And I think since the the 18th century, the late 17th century, and the beginning, in the 18th century, especially in France, with the ideas of the great philosophers, Voltaire, Montesquieu, and uh, so the idea that man is free to think, to decide his destiny, it completely changed the way that human beings see themselves. We see ourselves now as a free being, able to make our own decisions, to take part in our own destiny. And the ideas that came through those philosophers, in the and it's interesting because they call the Illuminists. It's very, very it completely changed. I mean, even Paris became the seat of light, doesn't it, Charles? Because of the Illuminists, the ideas, which was so new and it was so revolutionary. And of course, eventually they did have the French Revolution, and also the ideas as well of the American Revolution. It came from France as well. And even in Brazil, amazing as it seems, those ideas really spurred people to try to have freedom as well, because, they tried the revolution in Brazil long before the Americans, and was exactly based on those ideas of freedom. So I think even in a sort of a strong, and Charles talked about the in the Ukraine at the moment, and in so many places, people are changing, and it will change. You cannot impose your or oppression or ideas for too long, because there is a need. I think the very nature of a human being, as the spirits that we are, and this gift that God gave us to move forward, to evolve, means that we are forever looking for something, and we may be oppressed for a while, but there is always, and the more oppressed you are, the harder it is when you break out, isn't it? It's like a huge avalanche. So I think this is very important for us, that you cannot be subdued, because you cannot impose a thought on someone. They would think whatever, a man completely enchained, he still can think for himself. His
Yeah.
mind cannot be jailed. The only person who can jail him, it's himself. And I think that's why we see these revolutions and making huge changes, so they were.
Yeah. And uh, Charles, do you think we have a kind of limitation in our free will because we we as a human, I think we made a mistake in comparing freedom with free will. But even though they are different, do you think there is a limitation in our free will? You're not mute, Charles.
Yes, because freedom and free will, you gain them with evolution. If you want in order to be free, you have to want to be. And the more the spirit evolves, the more it acquires freedom, and also free will, in the sense of using the free will in the good direction. So it comes I mean, without free will, what are we? Because there are some scientists even today which are following the philosophy of determinism, which is okay. You know the initial conditions. If we know the initial conditions, we can calculate whatever someone will do or think or in the future. Means that all what we are doing today has been somehow programmed and can be foreseen in advance once we acquire the conditions. Okay, so this is the so-called determinism, the deterministic philosophy. And if this would be really true, what would we be? A machine or maybe an animal? The animals that's another good question. Do the animal have also free will? Not so much, because they have instincts. And here we see some animals starting to getting some kind of very slight signs of intelligence and of free will. And in humans, this free will is much more developed and the instinct is much reduced, albeit the instinct is always something quite safe to follow. But the free will has somehow replaced the instinct. So this is exactly illustrating this question of the limitation of the free will. We get it only really when we evolve. The lack of evolution is also reducing our free will, clearly.
Yeah.
And interestingly is when we look today, all these regimes, authoritarian regimes, that have been, they are using so wise. I mean, you can have a kind of a handbook of if you want to be a good dictator or a good authoritarian regime, what you have to do. And there are a lot of recepts. Feed the people with useless things, and you have even some authors who wrote books about this, the manual of the perfect dictator. And for instance, also the police that protects you must be paid double or triple as usual, in order to make sure they will be very dedicated and reliable to you. And there are a lot of methods like this in order to manipulate the people without the people becoming aware of it. So here as well, we see the people who are lacking the intelligence to detect they are manipulated are also somehow limited in their free will. And in order to come out of it, really, we need to study, we need to educate. And education is the only way to know, I'm being manipulated, let's step out or whatever. Because otherwise, you will, how to say, be like what is today still the majority of population, unfortunately, in these countries, where already young, they are manipulated with fake news, with false notions, and so on. And this has a very strong influence on their spirit, on their character, because starting in these difficult conditions, it will be much more work to acquire the discernment which is necessary in order not to fall in these traps. And this is somehow what we are seeing today. I'm really wondering how can people like in some countries, I told about Poland, Hungary, even UK, the Brexit has been voted, and then all of a sudden, oops, did we really have the nice vote? A lot of people started to doubt, but too late. It has been done. And in Poland, apparently, there has been a back change now, because the people became aware that it went too much, too far, and that it is time to give a break. Unfortunately, even today, the people still need to suffer such manipulations in order to become to get the conscience and the discernment to resist about it. And that's, amongst others, why Jesus said scandals must happen. It's only when scandals are happening that the consciences awake slowly but surely. And so we have these scandals in Ukraine, we have scandals in North Korea, we have scandals in Venezuela, we have scandals in Palestine, even. That's also, you see, authority against liberty, mixed with different culture and different religion. And it's again the same basic fundamental problem. Someone willing to gain space of the other. This also combined with selfishness is giving these terrible things we are still suffering here in the world. So we really should think about this liberty. We should think about and see all these conditions which are behind. Otherwise, we will not switch to this world of regeneration. Clearly,
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree with you. And I would say once we learn that my respect, let me try to translate this. Um, my respect goes up to the point when it starts your respect, and I need to understand it. And we, as a human being, we like to judge, we like to impose our viewpoint. We don't respect others' opinion. Just because someone thinking in a different way, it doesn't mean it's wrong or right. They have their opinion. They have the base, the facts that convince that person to have that opinion, which is perhaps completely different from the other one. But what they start doing is they start to impose their
point of
viewpoint,
view.
and this become the mess.
This is exactly where it starts. It starts on
Yeah.
an individual level and then gets collective. And so it's at the root, we shall really develop this, cultivate this in ourselves, willing to be free, and also willing all the others to be free, and have this respect for the freedom of our neighbors.
Yeah, agreed.
I think it's
Yeah.
interesting that you talk about respect, because that was the other part of the the talk, isn't it? And I was reading up the definition of freedom is what you have, you enjoy, but respect is what you give or receive. There is that difference.
Yeah, yeah,
I think that, we were talking about how, how many times there were revolutions, there were completely change of ideas that had been imposed on people a long, long time. And I think the history of England itself is very, in some ways, is quite interesting, and it's quite special, because whenever they wanted to impose quite a heavy thing, they said no thank you, and they forced the king, going back now to the 13th century, to sign the Magna Carta, that the king could not impose on the people his own desire. So they created the parliament and all this sort of thing. But then when the church started being very, very, trying to impose their own ideas here, they just said, no, thank you. We're going to change the religion, and destroyed the monastery, took all their money because they were quite rich and powerful. And that is, in many, many places. And, we had the sort of the rights, and it's being very good in that sense. But I find, and also in France, like we were talking before, and it's interesting because thinking about France, especially in relation to freedom and everything, the biographer of Voltaire, she wrote something very interesting. A lot of people actually talk about saying that this is from Voltaire, but it was from his biographer, based on his writings and his ideas, because Voltaire was a great fighter for new ideas and for freedom of thought and everything. And I love this phrase. He said, I disagree with what you say, but I will defend to death your right to say it. And I think it's very enlightening. And, because Voltaire was incredible, the way he really fought against the authority and the church and all that kind. And this is really interesting, because we seem now coming back, sort of in a way, because of everything that's happening in the world now, we seem to become away now from that thing of respect for what you think, freedom of expression, even religion. People start now trying to impose religion on other people, which is incredible. If you think about the 21st century, and we almost becoming, in certain things, it's almost become medieval, the dark ages, the high middle ages. And when people wanted to impose their religion, they wanted to impose a thing, and freedom of expression and freedom of thought is being very, very frighteningly so, being imposed upon. And somehow, we, especially in the West and everything, we have this thing of fair play, we respect what you think and all that kind of thing. Now I think we need to stand our ground, otherwise we'll be wiped out. And based on many things that throughout centuries people have fought for and we have achieved. As a woman, I cannot imagine the freedom that I have now to decide my life, to have my own job, to have my own money, to buy my own house. It never happened before, until maybe the middle of the 20th century. That, women in England is very famous that they killed themselves. She threw herself in the front of the king's horse in Ascot to actually talk about the right to vote. They fought hard. I mean, it's a lot of things. And now I can't imagine the kind of freedom that women have, but we don't use it well. We don't use it to elect the right people. And, everybody seems to be standing back, when there is this wave of quite medieval thoughts coming into our lives. If you think about, I don't know, I think France as well, and most of the cities in Europe and America, I know, and I think all over the world, we having now freedom of expression. Freedom of thought doesn't exist if you don't accept what the mob, because we have a mob in our streets nowadays, and if we don't accept what they think, they are very violent. So I mean, you know as well, because there is a lot happening in Ireland, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think, the Irish people are really leading the way there, I think, personally, because we need to really be careful. Okay, our freedom of expression, I think you said that my freedom go as far as your freedom, ends when your freedom starts.
Yeah.
And we seem to be losing that. There is an imposition, people, so I think it's a time for us to think. And if we go to Genesis, that thing, that the spirits and Kardec, he brings the change of times. He describes exactly that the old order will not going to want to be let go, because we as spirits, we are evolving. We have arrived at one point. We're sitting in the backs of Voltaire and Montesquieu and Rousseau and all the other philosophers that can, for a freedom, for a right to say, to think, and to respect the others. And the old order does not want to change. We read that, in Genesis, the end of times. So it's a time of change. And going back to that book that I absolutely love, Charles Dickens, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. A time of freedom was a time of imposition. And he's talking about the French Revolution, the first paragraph of that book, extremely meaningful. And we need to start getting the reins, because our freedom, we sort of moving out and allowing impositions in our thoughts and our power of our freedom of expression and our freedom to support whoever we think is right, not to support because you're more violent and you're going to impose your things, and being very violent and against people and everything. So it's times of change, and we, as spiritists, we need to be very aware of it, that we are living the times that, like in Genesis they describe so well. And of course, the prophetic sermon of Jesus in Mark. So there we are. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love this. I could hear you both talking all day here. Yeah. um, it's it's good to know we have this such conscious. Um, but knowing it is one thing. Practicing it is a different thing. You can have we can have our way to think, our way to act at home, but when we go outside home, things change, because always we will have someone imposing things, someone not respecting the traffic light in front of us, or when you go parking your car, someone just pumps ahead and take the spot. Uh, when we go to shopping, for example, we want to buy bananas, but when we arrive home, we bought bananas, pear, an iPhone, a car, and and you heard me just and a lot of things, and you forgot to buy the bananas because someone is imposing, someone is trying to. It's like I saw the other day, and I got this is a very good way to translate it. Imagine an elephant and a little girl, 6 years old, try to drive in the elephant. The elephant, it is our emotion. The little girl, it is our conscious. So when we are dealing with people, we are dealing with the elephant. Can you imagine when an elephant start to run? It's a mess, it cause a lot of problems. This is our emotion. Even though our conscience say, no, calm down, please, go slowly. So this make us a kind of vulnerable to this manipulation we have around us, in which there is no respect, there is no free, there is a false sense of freedom, a false sense of respect. And what Spiritism taught us is we need to have our voice. We need to have our opinion. We need to fight for what we do believe, but never, never ever trespass someone in order to get what you want.
This is why, Steven, today we talk about emotional intelligence and even better, spiritual intelligence. We talked a little
Yeah.
bit about it recently. And this intelligence is what is needed exactly, not to be manipulated. If I go to buy banana, why should I buy an iPhone? I can have 100 people willing to sell me an iPhone, saying it's for free. I will win, don't promising the moon and whatsoever. I will say, sorry, I don't need an iPhone. I just want a banana. Huh? We have to be, how to say, uh, a lot of people are influenceable, suggestionable, huh? And this is exactly advertisement and whatever, which works these things. But we can resist to such things, but it needs intelligence, it needs discernment, it needs to be firm on the purpose. What is the objective of in my life, huh? The spiritist answer is very clear. You have to progress as a spirit, not only in intelligence but overall much more in goodness, huh?
Mhm.
The respect of others goes also through the respect of our planet. Huh? Why should I consume without need? And having this type of ideas well thought about, well, how to say, digested in our mind, these are the protections we need. Huh? Of course, the challenges are a lot. And now you have AI, huh? AI willing also to influence you. As soon as you search something, you are receive suddenly a lot of advertisement about it. So when this happens to me, I'm just laughing. I'm saying, okay. And most of the time, when I look for something that I really need, I go look by and I receive advertisement after. It's too late. Sorry, my guy. You know, if you know what you want, and what you don't want, huh, of course, you have also to be open and to listen to wise advices. You don't need also to, I do only what I want and nothing else. And this is exactly all what is about this spiritual intelligence nowadays. This is really what you have to promote, what we have to encourage. Again, if we want to progress in this freedom, we need also to progress in this type emotional and intellectual and spiritual intelligences. Because you talked about an elephant. The elephant is a wonderful animal, isn't it? When you look the behavior of the elephants, it's amazing. Huh? Behaving really in an we should take example from them from time to time, you know. And so this is part also of this humility that we need.
Yeah, yeah. And you, my dear Silvia, what's your final thoughts?
Well, I think that we're living now through the times of change and great changes, and sometimes I wonder, why should I be here now? But there must be a reason for us to be here, and I think a great responsibility goes to parents, to really give their children a kind of base which seems to be somehow being lost. I don't know if maybe respect for your family, respect for yourself, respect for your friends, even if you don't know them. Be friends with people. And nowadays, because people are always so busy, it is always on the phone, and it's wonderful. I love technology, but I think sometimes it's too much. There is no conversation. There is no, so it's easier for a child nowadays be influenced by someone they don't even know, and completely oblivious of what the parents are doing. And I think some parents also, really, really a bit lapse in their the way they talk to the children. Is like the children now impose what they think on the parents. And I want to be friends. No, you're not friend with your child. You are her parent. You are their parent. Of course, you loving and kind, but even kindness sometimes they need boundaries. And I think if you think sometimes in terms, on your own life, how annoyed you were, when you were a teenager and you couldn't do certain things. But and I think I see my friends' children saying, yes, but she did that, so and so can do it, why can't I? And I used to say that all the time. And my mother is to say, well, that's their problem, her parents' problem. You are my responsibility, and you're not going to do that. And nowadays, looking back, I feel really blessed that I had a path that was told me, that I respect my family, that I respect my friends, that if they think different from me, it's fine. I don't need to impose on them. But also, are you not going to be imposed on? Because I think also, when you are in a group and you don't stand up for yourself, you get carried away, you get into the mob idea, and you do things that afterwards, when you stop to think, you're ashamed of yourself, because when you are in a group, you behave in a completely without any intelligence whatsoever. You go with the flow. And I think that's one of the things we really need to teach our children, our young people, that they are an individual with ideas and strength of their own, and there is some things you accept on others, but you don't follow. And there are things you have to say no to. And because respect and comes, if you don't respect people, you don't give them the freedom to be who they are. And basically, having freedom means that you respect the person and you allow them the space to become the best part that they can be, and they do the same to us. And I think sometimes it lacks in our society, but we are changing. It's all the process of transformation of our planet, and hopefully next time when I reincarnate here, it will be a lot better.
No way. Well,
So yeah, looking forward to that.
let's not forget that's our next carnation starts today.
I know you're telling me. Actually, there is just to close. There is a very interesting quote from my favorite, Voltaire. I took him today as an example. He says, "Every man is guilty of all the good that he did not do."
Yes. Wonderful. This is the hell conscious.
That's what the good that we do not do, we are guilty of. And actually, isn't it interesting? That's exactly what the Spiritist doctrine says.
That is a quote in. I know this makes sense in Portuguese. I don't know if this makes sense in English, but the hell is full of good intentions.
Yes, yeah. And exactly, yeah, there are a lot of, it's true.
Hello, Hipólito Rebolo, Luviem, Tara from Pacific Northwest. Good to know,
This
Tara.
is in the west coast of America, isn't she?
Pacific
Seattle,
Northwest.
around that
Yeah,
area, Washington
Seattle.
State.
Yeah, perhaps somewhere from Washington State.
The power of the internet.
Brilliant. This is why we're here. This is make us to keep going with this show 4 years in a row and try to spread the spiritism in English, reaching out people outside of our boundaries here. So that's amazing. Tara, these kind of messages make our day, make our day, at least reaching there. And if you are waiting an opportunity to do a speech to go there, perhaps you're going to wait for years, and here in seconds we reach you. So good.
Not so tough.
Yes. Yeah. So let me go through the announcements.
I don't know if you have announcement as well that the medium Flores Anton is coming to
Yes.
England this weekend.
Yeah.
It should be very interesting.
Yes. Let me share here. There we go. Okay. So next week, 6th of March, we will talk about the power of prayer. So next week, the power of prayer, 9 p.m. London time. We'll be here ready to go. On the 2nd of March, as Silvia said, we will have Florence Anton. Silvia will translate him, don't you, Silvia?
Yes, I will in many different places here in London. He'll be in London at Spiritualist Association of Great Britain in Battersea and in Kingston and in
Okay.
some other places as well. But those are two that English people can go.
Yeah, good. Yes. Okay. So also, just to save the date, in June 29 and 3rd of June in Oxford, we will have our Spiritism Acts 2024 with 9 speakers. I think they'll follow the same rules as last year, Charles. 15 minutes each.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. It's very interactive, very, very, very quickly. And the good thing is, we will have a session with the movie Astral City 2, Nosso Lar 2, The Messengers, because Wagner de Assis will be one of the speakers in these Spiritism Acts. Okay, so also this Sunday, Munir Gariba will host our friend Vanessa Anceloni, and she will talk about Camille Flammarion. So 3rd of March, 7 p.m. London time. Okay. Okay, I think my internet. Yeah, we have more people talking about Camille Flammarion, but as we said, every first Sunday of each month. There is a new edition of the Spiritism magazine in English. So you can go to spiritismmagazine.org. It's free, so you can download, you can read it, listen to our cardiac radio. Thanks to cardiac radio, we are reaching many people around the world. And last but not least, we do have every other Tuesday, 8:30 p.m., the conversation mediumship, time to talk with Faye Waddington and Rafael Caldas. And every Monday, 8 p.m. UK time, we will have the study of the book Astral City with Ebony Paris. This is it from me today. I wish you all a wonderful evening. Merci, Charles. Obrigado, Silvia.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you
God
very
bless.
much.
Our dear Elsa, Luviem, Tara, Hipólito Rebolo, César Pérez, Júlia Neso, Rubem de Los Santos, Célia Carvalho, Beatriz Gilles. Thank you so much for being here with us this evening. I'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. God bless. Bye.
Bye bye.